We've looked at a holiday romance in book form, now let's take a look at it in film form. Hello my friends, my name is AJ and welcome back to my book nook. Now obviously the Hallmark company is pretty much synonymous with Christmas. I think everyone associates their movies with the Christmas season and Netflix is trying to cut into that. Netflix has been trying to release their own original Christmas movies in the very much Hallmark Lifetime style, and most of them are not very good. One of the more well-known Christmas series that Netflix has put out is the Princess Switch trilogy starring Vanessa Hudgens, and Vanessa Hudgens. So I thought that I would take a look at these and give a little review on my thoughts of them. Now, going into these, I wasn't honestly expecting much. I knew that most of Netflix's Christmas movies were kind of cringy and not very well written, so I was expecting it to be so bad that it would be funny. But honestly, I was actually pleasantly surprised by some of them. Now, I will say that I was definitely let down as the series went on, but it actually started out pretty strong. So the Princess Switch is the classic story of the princess and the pauper switching places, two people who look identical and decide that they want to see what life is like on the other side. In this story, we have Vanessa Hudgens playing Stacy, a baker from Chicago who is competing in an international Christmas baking competition, and Lady Margaret, who is the Duchess of a fictional Genovia-sounding country who is set to marry the Prince of Belgravia. However, Lady Margaret has never actually experienced life for the people that she will be leading as the future Queen of Belgravia, and so she requests that Stacy and her switch places so that she can have a chance to experience what life is like for the people she'll be ruling. As they live lives as each other, Stacy begins to fall for Prince Edward and Margaret begins to fall for Stacy's friend Kevin. Honestly, this movie was a lot funnier than I thought it would be. I know it would be entertaining to watch, but I figured it'd be entertaining because it wouldn't be good. But there were actually a lot of really funny moments. There were some clever lines. There was some physical comedy that I actually found myself laughing at. And there were actually some really good moments in it. It was definitely predictable, but honestly, what Christmas movie isn't? And one of my biggest problems with it was the way that the characters were shown. I felt that despite the fact we spent an hour and a half on these characters, we barely knew anything about them. We spent way more time with Stacy and Edward than we did with Margaret and Kevin, so I felt like we didn't really get to know either of them very well, to the point where I have notes about this movie where I refer to Kevin as Thomas because I genuinely thought that that was his name. We're told that Stacy is supposed to be someone who's very by the book, someone who really loves following schedules and wants things to be exactly as planned. But we didn't really get to see that at all. In fact, Edward frequently had these spontaneous things for them to do, and she seemed fine with them doing it. And that didn't really line up with what we were told Stacy was as a character. And the same thing with Margaret. Margaret was supposed to be this very spontaneous person, but we never actually really saw much of that personality as the movie went on. Edward was actually an okay love interest. I think we definitely could have dived more into him as a character, but he was obviously very respectful of her. He actually cared about what she had to say and wanted to involve her with matters of the state, and I actually really enjoyed him. Kevin, on the other hand, we didn't see much of him at all. It was just kind of bland, and honestly, I feel like it could have used a lot of work on that storyline. There also was really no stakes whatsoever in this movie. Anytime there was some sort of conflict, it was solved immediately. One of the other competitors in the cooking competition tries to sabotage Stacy and Kevin by cutting the wire for their mixer, and that whole scene, oh my gosh. That whole scene actually upsets me so much because, first of all, they don't even discover that the mixer is broken until the end because they need to puree berries. But in reality, if you were going to be doing that, you would have used the KitchenAid mixer previously to make the cake batter, and you'd be using something else to puree the berries. And honestly, have these people never watched a baking show before? Not only that, but the actual problem is cut out very quickly. Basically, they're like, oh no, this is cut. I guess I'll have to do it by hand. We cut away to a different scene, we cut back, and they're done their cake. They have absolutely no sense of bringing conflict into the film, and anytime that there was one, it would be solved immediately. And then we get to my final issue with this movie, and one of my pet peeves in Christmas movies is this strange magical man who gives them advice and seems to show up everywhere. I get really, really annoyed by that because if you're gonna have a Christmas movie that has magic in it, that Santa exists and magic exists, whatever, okay, sure, you can include a kind of magical character whose sole purpose is to kind of help the heroes advance and to give them advice when they need it. But if you're doing that with a movie where there is no other use of magic in the world, then it just doesn't make sense. I think another example of that is the movie Christmas with the Cranks. There's a character who it's really implied that he's Santa, but the thing is that that is the only use of any sort of magic in that universe, and it ends up making it seem more creepy, like he's some sort of stalker than anything else, and I just find it really, really annoying when movies do that. So the second movie is called Switched Again, and in this movie, Stacy is now the Princess of Belgravia, married to Prince Edward, and Margaret and Kevin, though they tried to make it work, are no longer together. Margaret is also now waiting to be coronated as queen of her country because the king has passed and now she is going to be the next queen. Stacy, Edward, and Kevin go to her coronation and they meet a third Vanessa Hudgens who is evil and trying to steal the throne. And in an attempt to get Kevin and Margaret back together, Stacy and Margaret do another switch so that she can spend time with him. This movie was absolutely insane. Honestly, the tonal shift from the first movie to this one, crazy. There was a lot more focus on the romance between Kevin and Margaret, but I still feel like we didn't really get to know anything about him. And my other issue, again, has to be the fact that they're still not showing us the personalities of the two main characters. We don't really get to see much of Stacy except that she's very busy doing charity work and that she barely has time for her relationship anymore, and that's the main conflict of their storyline. But we don't really get to see that personality that she had of being very by the books and very on schedule. In fact, she's the one who suggests the switch in the first place. And with Margaret, she never wanted to become queen in the first place. That was her conflict in the first movie. She didn't like being in the spotlight. She didn't feel like she would have been a good leader. And so becoming queen and being forced into that position now, she's doing it for a sense of duty. But we don't ever actually see that development. It would have been interesting to see her kind of grow as a leader throughout the movie and learn how to come into her own and become a good leader but still stay true to herself. But instead, her conflict is, oh, they weren't listening to me in this meeting, when in reality, her conflict should have been, oh, everyone's looking to me for guidance and I don't know what to do. Like I said, it's the same with Stacy and Edward. We obviously know that their relationship is having a bit of problems because she's so busy and he's also so busy and they don't really have time for each other, but we barely actually see that happening because they barely interact. The main evidence of the fact that they have problems in their relationships is the fact that she doesn't even tell her husband that she's switching places with Margaret. I will say this though, the movie was a lot better for set design and costume. I didn't mention this in the review for the first movie, but the costume design and the set design was absolutely abysmal in the first movie. It's supposed to take place in this different country, but it just felt like we were in America. There was really no attempt to make it look different, and even the palace itself was very lackluster. But in this movie, it was actually so much better. There was tons of decorations, there was decadence and elegance, it was beautiful. I think that they really stepped up their game. So in the third movie, The Princess Switch Romancing the Star, we focus more on Fiona, the evil Vanessa Hudgens. Margaret, who is now queen, and Kevin, who is now her Christmas prince, are having a giant festival for international celebration of Christmas, and Edward and Stacy have come to help, and they've even been loaned a star for their Christmas tree from the Vatican, which once belonged to St. Nicholas. However, this star gets stolen, and to try and find it, they contact Fiona, who has the most knowledge of being a criminal, so that she could be able to help them. With the help of one of her old friends, she's able to figure out that it has been stolen by a hotel owner, and they have to try and steal it back in this crazy, crazy Christmas heist. This movie is completely different from the other two. It was really less of a romance and more of a Christmas heist movie, except they were still trying to put in a romance with Fiona and her old friend Peter. Now, the thing is with Fiona and Peter is that they were telling us once again that they had this very sweet relationship once and that she pulled away because she was afraid to get too serious, but we're never actually shown that. We get shown a couple of flashbacks of the two of them, but the flashbacks are only 2 and they're from the same day, and it's from when they were 10 years old, and honestly, I took it more as they could have been friends rather than in love with each other. Fiona also has to deal with her rocky relationship with her mother, and honestly, I think that that would have been a better storyline, where the love that Fiona is discovering is not romantic, but instead love for her family and love for her friends. And I think that would have been a really nice way to tie it together. Because like I said, there was so much focus on the heist, which, don't get me wrong, was super fun. I love a good heist movie, that we didn't really have a lot of time to focus on the romance, which left it really lackluster and more of a B plot that just didn't land for me. Not to mention the fact that this movie was meant to be a redemption story for Fiona. After everything she's done in the previous movie, they're trying to show that she is a good person, but the problem is that the explanation they gave for the last one is just she had a sad childhood, and her apology from the previous movie didn't even seem genuine. So for me, I couldn't possibly be rooting for her to have this happiness when she hasn't even really seemed to be sorry for what she'd done before. She was just sorry that she got caught and that she doesn't have money anymore. You can't take a character that you've made no effort to try and show that they're willing to redeem themselves and try and give them a redemption story and a love story, because then I'm not going to be able to root for them because I'm still upset over what they did previously. Overall, I'd say that the Princess Switch movies actually pleasantly surprised me. They definitely weren't what I was expecting, especially as the series went on, but I actually did enjoy them. The first one seems like a very fun, classic Hallmark style Christmas movie, and I definitely really loved it. The second one for sure let me down, and the third one was really less of a romance and more of a heist movie, but it was also very fun. But honestly, I think they could have stopped after the first movie. The first movie was really its peak, especially if what they were going for was a Christmas romance. I don't think that just because something is a Christmas movie means that we can dismiss bad writing and bad storytelling. And obviously being predictable is okay. I kind of expect that. I'm willing to dismiss it because, you know, you want it to have a happy ending. You want that cheesy comfort. But having a real show and not tell problem like these movies have, I don't think is excusable just because it's meant to be a Christmas romance. The movies honestly weren't as bad as I thought they'd be. I thought that they would be so bad that it would be funny, but they were just kind of decent. They weren't super good, they weren't super bad. They were just sort of in the middle. And honestly, I think I would have preferred if they had just made the first one and then stopped after that. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around and see more content like this. And let me know, have you watched The Princess Switch, and did you have similar thoughts to me? Or did this video make you want to watch the movies? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation with all of you. But that is it for me today. I will see all of you lovely people in the next video. Bye!